So can we start, sir? Sheikh
Yes,
sir?
yes, yes. Yes,
Yes,
yes.
Umesh?
Yes,
Sorry?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
A very good evening to everyone. On behalf of Department of Chemistry and IQAC of Maharashtra College of Arts, Science and Commerce, I Ansari Mohammad Umar welcome you all to an online national level webinar on human rights and health. This national webinar will be from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's a great honor for me to introduce and welcome our speaker for this evening. Today we are privileged to have an opportunity to listen to him this evening. On behalf of all gathered here, I welcome Advocate Parth Singh LLB. He practices in lower courts, tribunal and Bombay High Court. We begin our webinar by seeking the blessings of Almighty, for which I invite Aftab Bhagwani to recite the verses from the Holy Quran. Yes, Aftab.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأن لهم الجنة يقاتلون في سبيل الله فيقتلون ويقتلون وعدا عليه حقا في التوراة والإنجيل والقرآن ومن أوفى بعهده من الله فاستبشروا ببيعكم الذي بايعتم به وذلك هو الفوز العظيم. التائبون العابدون الحامدون السائحون الراكعون
Okay, thank you, Aftab. Now, I am grateful and honored to request our head of department, Dr. Ahmed Sheikh, to brief about our department. Hello?
Respected, yes.
Yes, sir.
Shall I start, Umar?
Yes, sir. Thank
Respected Principal, Vice Principal, today's guest of honor, the Speaker of the evening, Advocate Parth Singh, his magnanimity and generosity that he consented for our this evening program. IQAC Coordinator Rakshanda Hani, and today's national webinars, main architect Dr. Mayuri Joshi, her associate Dr. Nilima Dikshit, and above all, Omer, the ambassador of our Science Association Maharashtra College, his entire team. I welcome you all with Islamic greetings. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very, very good evening to everybody. May peace, mercy and blessings of Creator of the universe, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be on all of you. We all are here today for online webinar on human rights health. Human rights in 1950, the Assembly passed a resolution that 10th of December will be celebrated as a human rights. And this human right is overall, there are 30 rights spread into 30 articles, 1 to 30. And the health care is the fundamental human right. It is a very nice topic at this moment when we all over the world are facing a crisis of coronavirus, that is COVID-19. So healthcare is most important, and it emphasizes that how the neat and cleanliness is must for a good health. So I really congratulate our coordinator, Dr. Mayuri Joshi, that she has selected a very nice topic and she has invited a very nice speaker who is advocate by profession. Certainly, I am sure he will be giving full justice with the topic and covering the entire aspect for whatever the human rights is talking about, especially with health point of view. On the behalf of chemistry department, I would like to say our college, Maharashtra College of Arts, Science and Commerce, came into existence in 1968. Since then, our chemistry department is there. Since 1968, in 2018, our college celebrated Golden Jubilee 2018. Our chemistry department also completed 50 years in 2018. In our chemistry department, degree college, there are 7 teachers. Most of them are doctorates. The highest qualification page is DSc. Out of 7, myself as head of the department, Dr. Zulekha, Professor Asif, Dr. Nilma Dikshit, Dr. Shagufta Ansari, Dr. Mayuri Joshi, and Dr. Riaz Ahmed Dar. Out of 7, I let you know 4 of them are PhD guides. Myself, as well as Dr. Zulekha, Dr. Dikshit, as well as Dr. Mayuri Joshi, who is today's evening's coordinator. Our chemistry department is well equipped with laboratories, that is main lab, physical lab, and analytical lab. We are having the sophisticated instruments like flame photometer, spectrophotometer, sonicator, potentiometer, conductometer, colorimeter, polarimeter, etc., etc., etc. And very soon we are going for master's program also. And in the month of March, we are going for an international conference on burning issues in material science, jointly conducted by chemistry and physics department. So on the behalf of Maharashtra College, principal, vice principal, as well as management, and especially the chemistry department, I thank today's evening speaker, Parth Singh, for accepting our invitation and here benefiting entire society, that is human beings all over the world, not only in India. I am sure Adv.Paarth Singh will do justice with the topic and he will ignite the young brains as well as the old brains equally, and people will be listening carefully, and in feedback they will be giving their comments, and at the same time they will be getting benefit of that. So my humble request to everybody is that tell your friends, tell your colleagues to join the webinar and make it a grand success. I thank the entire team of Omar who is coordinating with us. May Creator of the universe, Almighty Allah, shower choicest blessings on every one of us and protect us from all the type of calamities, natural or otherwise. Ameen Tathastu. Thank you very much. God bless everybody. Have a nice evening and listen to the speaker.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful words. I now invite the coordinator of the national webinar, Dr. Mayuri Joshi, to introduce our guest speaker, Advocate Paarth Singh.
Thank you, Umed. Thank you, Dr. Sheikh, sir, for for inviting and all the coordinator, and thank you for kind words. Good evening to all delegates, respected principal, vice principal, Head Department of Chemistry, IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Rakshanda Hani, my colleagues, students and all participants attending from across the India. I, Dr. Mayuri Joshi, Assistant Professor, Department of Chemistry, welcomes you all for this virtual national webinar on human rights and health, jointly organized by Chemistry Department and IQAC of Maharashtra College. On the backdrop of Republic Day yesterday, it's right time to have this session on the subject of human right. So let me set the context. The right to the health is fundamental right. The Constitution of India. In this global pandemic, every citizen has the right to highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, which includes access to all medical services, sanitation, adequate food, decent housing, healthy working condition, and clean environment. Ladies and gentlemen, today it's my privilege to welcome Adv.Paarth Singh, a very special guest speaker from Mumbai. Adv.Paarth sir had completed his LLB degree from Rizvi College of Law and currently he is doing his practice at Bombay High Court, Tribunal and lower courts. Today, Advocate Parth would be sharing with us his expert opinion and his deep understanding on human rights and health. Without much ado, I now request you all to give full attention to our guest speaker, Advocate Parth, and join me in welcoming him for running this webinar. Over to you, Advocate Parth sir. Thank you all for taking your time and you have joined this webinar here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Very nice, Dr. Meher. Excellent.
Okay, so good evening,
Yes.
everybody.
Yeah, good evening.
At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Joshi, the respected organizer, Dr. Hani, the coordinator of IQAC, Dr. Sheikh, the respected HOD, for his kind words, and Dr. Chogale, the principal, for organizing this lecture. And let's get into it. So. Is the slide visible?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So this is human rights and health. This is how we're going to go about this lecture. First, I'll talk to you about the importance of health. Then we'll talk about the definitions of the term health and the term human rights. Then we will look at the key aspects of the health, the right to health. Then we'll look at some of the misconceptions related to the right to health. Then we shall look at human rights and health, how they are dealt with in Indian law, and finally medical negligence. All right, so this is how we can start now. Why is health important? At the very outset, I have asked a question, the answer to which is actually very obvious. Why health is important? But the reason I'm saying, or the reason I am saying that health is important is because we need to understand that health is so important that it has been elevated to the pedestal of being a human right. Health is a matter of daily concern. Regardless of age, gender, socioeconomic or ethnic background, we consider our health to be the most basic and the most essential aspect. The key word here is basic. The reason health has been elevated to the point of human rights is because it is absolutely basic. It is one of the first things required to be done before you can go ahead and function in your daily life and go ahead and fulfill your responsibilities. Which is why I say that health is really important, and it sets the groundwork for why health is actually a human right. Fine. Let us look at the definition of the term health. As I have written up in this presentation, health is a term that is used very commonly. It is used by everybody and it has a variety of connotations. One of the connotations may be that it is not being obese, or it could mean being free of disease. These connotations are correct. But when you look at the term health from a legalistic point of view, what you have to appreciate is that the term health is actually a very broad term. It actually has within its scope many, many different things. Hence, one of the best definitions of the term health has been provided by the World Health Organization in its 1946 constitution, where it said that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. As I said earlier, there are many connotations. Maybe it could mean not being, maybe it could mean being free of disease. Hence, the definition by the World Health Organization is all encompassing. It says that it's a complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Another aspect of health is that it is a fundamental right. A question might come up as to what is the difference between a fundamental right and a human right. A fundamental right is a term that is used to describe all the basic rights in the Indian Constitution. So human rights is an international concept. Fundamental rights is a domestic concept. All right, now coming to the definition of human rights. If you look at the term human rights itself, it is a combination of two words, human and rights. And it is through these two words that we can actually understand what is the entire sweep of the term human rights. A human right is something that is inherent in all human beings. Because you are a human, that is why you have this right. Everyone is entitled to these rights without discrimination. I would like to repeat again, it is because you are a human that you have this right. It's a natural right. If you look at the last point in this slide, it says human rights are a product of human reason and hence may constitute that which is called law of nature or natural law. When I say law of nature, I do not mean that law in which a lion hunts a gazelle or a crocodile eats a fish. I don't mean that nature. I mean something that takes birth by the very nature of being human beings. Before we get into this, I would like to give you two schools of thought. One, there is the naturalist school of thought that I just spoke about. The other is the positivist. The positivist school of thought says that you have human rights not because you're a human, but because the government under which you live has given you these rights. Which means that because there is a parliament, the parliament has given you these rights, which is why you have this human right. So this positivist understanding of what is a human right has actually been relegated to the past, to something that is now not accepted, and it is something that was a 19th century concept, but now in the 21st century, human rights are understood as natural law. Another aspect that I would like to ask now, at this point I would like to ask you, you have a human right, you say it is inherent. Suppose I ask you, do you have the right to food? The first answer that comes is, yes, I have the right to food because it is the most basic thing that I need to live my life. It is something that comes out because I'm a human being. Hence we say that the right to food is a human right for those reasons. Moving ahead. So as I said that human rights accrue to you because you're a human being. So what did the Universal Declaration of Human Rights do? What did the International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights in 1966 do? What they both did is that they just codified that which was till now a product of human reasoning. That health as a human right was something that we all accepted, and we all said that, look, I'm a human being, I need food to live, and hence it is my right to have food. What the Universal Declaration of Human Rights did is that it put it on paper, it codified it. All right, moving further. Key aspects of the right to health. The first aspect of the right to health is that it is an inclusive right. Frequently, when I say what is the right to health, the first answers that come to me are that it is an access to health care. It is an access to the building of hospitals. These interpretations of the right to health are absolutely correct. But where they falter is that they do not look at how inclusive this right is. They merely state some of the aspects of what the right to health is. So when I say that the right to health is an inclusive right, I mean that there are a bundle of rights that come together to determine what the health of a person will be. Some of these determinants I have listed down below. They are safe drinking water and adequate sanitation, safe food, adequate nutrition and housing, healthy working and environmental conditions. Here I would like to allude to something that is very Indian. When we say that what are the rights that the government should give us, the first things that we say is that roti, kapda or makan. Exactly. These are the things that are required to give you an inclusive right to health, and hence they are some of the determinants. Furthermore, sorry. Right. Continuing, the first aspect of the right to health is that it is an inclusive right, as I mentioned earlier. I mentioned the underlying determinants of health. Let us look at some more aspects of the term right to health. The right to health contains freedoms. When I say that it contains freedoms, I mean that you have the freedom from non-consensual medical treatment. If you have not consented to a medical treatment, then it is your freedom not to be subjected to that medical treatment. Furthermore, there are medical experiments, there are forced sterilization, there is a form of torture. These are the forms of torture, and these are things that you are not subjected to because you have the freedom. When I say the right to health, you have the freedom not to be subjected to a medical experiment. Talking about these medical experiments, I would like to give you an example from the burning issues of today's time. The first health issue in today's times is the coronavirus. And we all know that now the vaccines have started coming and are being administered the world over. The stage prior to vaccination was research in was research in vaccinations. What they did was they did trials before they could determine if something was if something could be administered or not. So now talking about the freedom of medical experiments, you would have heard what a challenge trial is. A challenge medical trial is something completely different from the medical trials that we've had now. Let me make it clear, the challenge medical trial has not been undertaken by any of the companies that have produced the vaccine because it is something that is wrong medically, it is unethical. What happens in a challenge trial is that the actual virus is administered to a person who has been vaccinated, and they go on to see whether that vaccination is effective against the actual virus, and that is a challenge medical trial where they challenge the body with the real virus. It is unethical because it can lead to disease, it can lead to death, and hence the freedoms contained in the right to health is a freedom from such challenge medical trials. Moving forward, the right to health contains entitlements. These entitlements I have listed down. They are the right to prevention, treatment, and control of diseases, the right to access to essential medicines, maternal, child, and reproductive health. These are just some of the examples that show that the right to health has some entitlements. Now, when I say that it is an entitlement, what is the meaning of the term entitlement? It is something that you have the right to, it's something that accrues to you. It is something that the government has to give you. And the right to prevention, treatment, and control of diseases, the access to essential medicines are all things that you are entitled to that have to be given to you by the government. Moving further. Key aspects. The final aspect is health services accrue to everybody without any discrimination. Before moving forward, I would like to point out that one of the most salient one of the most salient, one of the most critical aspects of a human right is that it is guaranteed without any discrimination whatsoever. Hence, a health service, which is a human right, is also guaranteed without any discrimination whatsoever. All right, moving forward. Some common misconceptions about the right. All right, some common misconceptions about the right to health. The right to health is not the same right to be healthy. Now, when I say health and when I say healthy, being healthy is a state of someone's medical conditions, is a state of someone's physical and mental conditions. And we also have to understand is that being healthy is outside the domain of the control of a state, because the health of a person is dependent on a lot of things. It is dependent on genes, it is dependent on the environment, it is dependent on the kind of socio-economic aspect that someone is related to. So when I say right to be healthy, it is not something that is guaranteed by the state. But the right to health, see, the difference here is very minuscule. The right to health is something that can be guaranteed by the state, though not the right to be healthy. The right to health means that there is an enjoyment of a variety of goods, facilities, services, and conditions necessary for the realization of the health. Hence, we say that the right to health actually is a set of things that are guaranteed by the government to the citizen, and it is not exactly the right to be healthy, but it is the entitlement that contributes to your health. This is the first misconception. The second misconception is that the right to health is not only a programmatic goal to be attained in the long term only. Here, when we say that the right to health is not only a programmatic goal to be attained in the long term, we mean that often every goal of any scheme, of any policy, of any law is some sort of an achievement in the long term. But when it comes to health, it is not something that has to be achieved only in the long term. It is something that is to be achieved in the short term. It is something that has to be achieved every day. Hence, one of the critical issues that can be read into this is the COVID crisis. The very fact that we have this health crisis, it means that the government has to be alive to it. It has to attain all those attainments in the short term only and not only in the long term. Hence, we can see that the efficiency of the government, the efficiency of all the doctors has been such that they have tried to control the COVID epidemic, the COVID pandemic as soon as possible and in the short term. Furthermore, states have to ensure a minimum level of access. See, you can have the right to health. You can have that bridges the thing that bridges a patient to the medicines is access, and that access has to be ensured by the government to a minimum level. At least there has to be a benchmark beyond which they cannot go. They can't go too low in that access. There has to be a minimum level of access. Moving on further. Again, a country's difficult financial situation does not absolve it from taking action to realize the right to health. See, every country has unique problems. India has unique problems. And the government tailors its response to these problems depending on what kind the problems are. One of the problems in every country, especially in our country, is guaranteeing the right to health. Hence, the right to health cannot be ignored by a country just because of its financial situation. Hence, what I'm saying is that the right to health has to be high on the priority list of each and every country's government, any country for that matter, and especially in these times because of the epidemic, because of the pandemic. Sorry. All right, moving forward. All right, human rights and health in India. So let's look at the laws governing the right to health in India. At the very outset, there is no explicit framing in the Constitution of India that the Indian citizenry has the right to fundamental health. There is no such declaration, there is no such article that produces what I'm saying verbatim. When I say verbatim, I mean word to word. So the right to health has not been articulated in these words, but there are many articles, there are many laws that provide a bundle of these rights, that provide a coverage of these rights. So if we look at the third point, the directive principles of state policy, Article 39 directs the state to secure the health of workers. Article 42 directs the state to just and humane conditions of work and maternity leave. Article 47 casts a duty on the state to raise the nutrition levels and standards of living of people and improve public health. So what you can see from just these three articles is that in the Constitution, while there is no verbatim right to health as such, there are different articles that cover different aspects of the right to health, and these are two or three examples that are part of the entire edifice of what the right to health in India actually is. These are just two, three examples. Now, speaking about the edifice, one of the most critical rights in the Constitution that is guaranteed to each and every citizen is Article 21. Article 21 is the right to life and liberty of a person. So, the extent and the scope of the right to life and liberty, even when we talk to each other in layman's terms, would be such that almost anything and everything can be included in the right to life. When you say that I have the right to life, and I go forward and I dwell into it and I say, what are these rights to life? It could be right to clean environment. It could mean right to food. It could mean right to prisoners' rights. Hence, what I'm trying to say is that Article 21 is so huge in scope that a number of rights have been interpreted in it. A little more, when I say the rights have been interpreted, see, we have the legislature, the parliament, that comes up with these articles. Article 39, Article 42, Article 47, Article 21. The judiciary, what it does is that when a case comes to it under Article 21, they interpret that article. And when they interpret that article, they expand the scope of what that article applies to. Hence, when that is done, numerous things are included under that interpretation that are not included by the legislature. So when I say that the legislature has not given a right to health, I in the same breath I say that Article 21 has been interpreted by the judiciary to include the various aspects of right to health in it. All right. So we can say that Article 21 contains the right to health and it contains many different aspects of the right to health. Moving forward. Okay, so as I said that the Supreme Court of India, what it does is it interprets articles and it includes within that article aspects of the right to health. So here we have three examples of that very activity, that very exercise of the Supreme Court. First is Bandhua Mukti Morcha versus the Union of India. In this case, the Supreme Court interpreted the right to health under Article 21. Second, State of Punjab and others versus Mohinder Singh Chauhan. The Apex Court, which is the Supreme Court, reaffirmed that the right to health is fundamental to the right to life and should be put on record that the government has a constitutional obligation to provide health services. Hence, we can see that the Supreme Court, through interpretation, has put the obligation of providing providing health services upon the government. Moving forward. Now coming to medical negligence. So when we say medical negligence, Before we get into medical negligence, we have to understand what is negligence in the first place. Negligence is when the duty that a person owes has not been observed by that person in a variety of circumstances, in a variety of contexts. That could be a context of, in this case, medical negligence. It could be the context of, say, Bhopal gas tragedy, where there was negligence on part of the company that resulted in the Bhopal gas tragedy. Hence, we say that negligence is basically where there is a duty that has to be observed. Now, before getting into medical negligence, nobody is perfect. Okay. So when you say that nobody is perfect and everybody can make a mistake, can I not say that the negligence that I did was also just one of the mistakes that anybody and everybody would do? So when you say that, it tends to, negate negligence. Right. So it tends to negate negligence. So the beauty of the law is that it has actually gone ahead and harmonized both these points of view. On the one hand, it says that there is a duty that has to be followed. On the other hand, it says that yes, not everybody is perfect. They are bound to make mistakes. So how did the law actually move ahead and harmonize these? This is what I'll tell you now. What the law said is that a minimum duty is obligatory from one person to another in different settings. So let's take the Bhopal gas tragedy setting. The minimal duty on part of the owner of the Bhopal gas plant, on part of the management of the Bhopal gas plant, was to put in safety protocols. These safety protocols and safety mechanisms for the machines and for the people. Now, if that is the duty of care that it owes to the people, if it does not follow these duties, that is putting protocols, that is putting in safety mechanisms, and there is a disaster, then we can say that there has been a case of medical negligence. Sorry, there has been a case of negligence. Suppose that Bhopal gas company had put in place those protocols, had put in place those mechanisms on the machine, and still there was a disaster, we can say that their negligence has been watered down. Of course, there are principles of law that say that even if there has been no negligence, that person is liable. Of course, that is in an exceptionary situation, that is in an exception. All right. So we can say that medical negligence, or negligence for that matter, is such that if there is a duty to be owed, there's a minimum checklist that has to be checked by each and every person, and if that is not done, then there is negligence. Right. So the reason I brought in medical negligence is to actually show that in our country, or in any country for that matter, in today's time, medical negligence is important because we are all going through circumstances which are essentially medical. Because yes, I'm referring to the COVID-19 crisis. All right. So moving forward, yes, let's look at a slightly more technical aspect of medical malpractice. As I said, there is a duty of care. This has been termed as the standard of care. A standard of care, if not followed by a medical professional, he will be liable for medical negligence. Again, if there is a standard of care and he has not followed the standard of care, he is liable. So the next question is, what is standard of care? Standard of care is something that a reasonably prudent medical provider would or would not have done under the same or similar circumstances. If there is a case, there are A, B, C, D circumstances, and in those circumstances, if a reasonably prudent medical professional had done something or not done something, that would be the standard of care. Hence, if in that situation a doctor does not follow what a reasonably prudent doctor would have done, he would be guilty for medical negligence. Let's talk about an example. A patient has come out of, let's say he's not come out, he's been admitted to hospital because he's been infected with some problem. He's had a surgery. Because of that surgery, he has lost a lot of blood. There's weakness, and he's under a high dose of medicine. Now, the standard of care in that situation is that a doctor should be aware that there is loss of blood, that there is weakness, there are high dose of medicine, and he has to respond to these 2-3 circumstances in a way that he can mitigate these circumstances. So, when he has to respond by mitigating these and he does not, we can say that the standard of care expected of him has not been fulfilled. Moving ahead, as I said, this is again duty to exercise reasonable duty of care. I've dealt with that. Okay, now let's look at some case law. Case law again means something that has gone to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court has decided it and has laid down some principles. So let's look at Shishi Ranjan Saha versus the state of Tripura. If a doctor did not pay enough attention to the patient in government hospitals, as a result of which the patient suffers, the doctor can be held liable to pay compensation. Okay, let's look at this minutely. I've said the doctor did not pay enough attention. So when someone is ill, goes to a particular government hospital, and it is incumbent on the doctor to pay a certain amount of attention to that patient, and he does not do that, there is some dereliction of his duty, then we can say that he's been negligent. Moving forward. All right, now coming to the concluding part of the presentation. These are some cases, and these will just illustrate again what I had said earlier. In Gyan Chand versus Vinod Kumar Sharma, this was a case of instant treatment. A particular patient had gone to the hospital and it was deemed or it was understood that that patient required instant treatment. Again, I'm saying he required instant treatment. Having required instant treatment, he was sent in spite of that from one ward to another ward repeatedly, and hence he was not given instant treatment. So we can say that the duty was instant treatment. Instead, he was sent from one ward to another, because of which he fell ill or because of which damage was caused to him. Hence, we can say that the doctor is liable for negligence. All right, moving to the second example is a case of anesthesia. So, a person had to go into surgery. And as you know that when you go into surgery, anesthesia is administered to the patient. Now, anesthesia comes with its own, side effects or its own risks. Now, to mitigate those side effects and risks, a chart revealing the information about the allergies that would be caused to the patient by anesthesia has to be maintained. What happened in this case was that chart was not maintained, even though it was required by the law, and the patient died because of the anesthesia that was given to him. Hence, we can say that there has been dereliction of due diligence, of due care, and anesthesia resulted in death, even though there had to be a chart which was not given to the doctor. All right. Now, looking at medical negligence, finally, we have civil law, we have criminal law, and we have consumer law. Medical negligence can be decided upon in any of these or in all of these streams of law. So when we say civil law, it means that the person who has gone to court under civil law will get a compensation for that negligence. When we say that he has gone under criminal law, it means that the doctor, if found negligence, would go to jail. And finally, we have the consumer protection aspect. In this case, the Trade Association versus VP Shanta and others, it was deemed that medical care is a service, and the moment you have a service, the person to whom that service is given is a consumer, and hence we have that medical negligence can be understood under the consumer consumer protection law also. All right. So that would be the end of
Yes, sir.
yeah, that would be the end of
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. It was a very enlightening, informative, and marvelous presentation. And
thank
now
you.
for the question and answer section, I would request the participant to ask question. You can unmute yourself or you can post it in chat box.
Yes, Huda Kazi, please unmute yourself and ask a question.
Hello,
Yes.
good evening, everyone. Sir, I would like to ask that how are these human rights enforced domestically?
All right. So see, as I said earlier, human rights are an international regime. What happens is that there are two ways in which they are enforced domestically. Either one of them is that the parliament that makes the laws, it takes inspiration from these international laws and makes the Indian laws. That is one way through which international laws are incorporated domestically. The second way that they are incorporated domestically is through judicial interpretation. What happens is that when a case comes to the court, the Supreme Court is told that there is a conflict between so and so international law and so domestic law. So what happens is that the Supreme Court, it follows the approach of harmonizing these two forms of law, one that is in the international arena and one that is in the domestic arena. And by reconciling and harmonizing these aspects of law, it incorporates the international law into the domestic law without violating the domestic law. This is how international law is incorporated domestically. Yeah, that's it.
Hello, one more question, sir.
Yeah.
Hello. Yes,
Yes.
so what is the difference between human rights and right in the Constitution of India?
Okay. So again, we come to this aspect. Human rights are an international regime. Constitutional rights, fundamental rights, or a domestic regime. But sorry, can you repeat the question once more?
Yes, sir. My question was, what is the difference between human rights and
All right.
right in the Constitution of India?
Yeah. Right. So there is actually no difference. There's actually a huge amount of overlap. When you look, for example, you say Article 21, right to life. It is so basic that it is something that is incorporated in international law also. So the only difference is that domestic law is meant for a particular country, while international law is meant for the entire scheme of all countries put together.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yes, there is
Any more
one
questions
question
from
in
anyone?
chat. Yes, Umer, there is one more question in chat box. I can see, are these acts is used in day-to-day life? Aisha Sheikh has asked. Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. See, the thing is that when you look at laws that are legislated, there seems to be a vacuum between the people who legislate those laws and the common people and the common people. And from there, that question comes: is that how does it affect our normal life? So it affects our normal life in two ways. The first way is that all policies find their grounding in law. So when we say that we have a shutdown for COVID, that law or that shutting down has been authorized by the Epidemics Diseases Act. Hence, we can see that when you look at this case or when you look at this law, we can see that something like a shutdown, which affects each and every one of us, is founded in the Epidemic Diseases Act, and that is how it affects us.
Yes, Dr. Mona Singh has raised her hand. Dr. Mona Singh, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Yes, Dr. Mona Singh. Okay. Yeah, Umer, continue.
Yeah, ma'am. So any more questions? Hello. Okay, so one last question from my side. Can one can go to court if the right to health is not guaranteed?
Yes, absolutely. See, the right to health is a fundamental right, and you can go to court if your fundamental right has not been guaranteed. There are two courts that you can go to. Either you can go to the High Court, which is the highest court in a state, or you can go to the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the country. You can go by a proceeding that is named as a writ petition. Again, I would like to repeat, a writ petition. If you feel that any of your if any of your rights have not been given to you, not been guaranteed to you, suppose there was medical negligence in a government hospital, you can go to the High Court of that state or to the Supreme Court of the country and say that this right in so and so circumstance was not guaranteed to me, and hence I would require some form of compensation, some form of damages from the respective court.
Okay, sir, but how we can aware the citizens about this right? Like if we say someone to go court and also they will like why to go court, they are afraid of court and that visiting court and from police and all. So how can we aware them and make them?
See, I understand completely your concern, and it is something that even I experience whenever I used to practice. There is a large amount of hesitancy of going to court, of going to lawyers and trying to enforce a right through uh, through the courts of the country. Yes, there is a large amount of hesitancy. It is expensive. It is something that takes up a lot of time. I mean, the law of the country, the courts of the country are known for taking a lot of amount of time. There's delay. So the best thing that you can do is that either you develop the stamina to go through the problems or to go through the entire system. You either develop the stamina for that, or you go through informal mechanisms. You try and you dialogue with the person or with the institution that has violated your human right, and you try and solve it at that level, or else you are constrained to go to the legal system and do it through that system.
Yeah, but in some cases, like opposition give that money and all, they hire them and then they change their dialogues and all. Then in that case,
See,
what we can do?
yes, corruption, as you're speaking about, the opposition.
That's a big
Uh,
issue. If someone go to court taking his case, then anyone can change his dialogue by giving him money, hire him, and something and all.
Yes, see, there is a large amount of corruption that takes place in different aspects of the government, and in this one, as you're pointing out. But I want to tell you one thing, something that is something that I learned in, or what I've learned up till now, is that the judges that are there in the country, starting right from the lowest court, going all the way to the top court, are persons of integrity. I must tell you that they are persons of integrity. They are persons who want to work for the common man. And even if there is some amount of corruption, you must place your trust in the judges of the country, because they are efficient people, they are effective people, and they have integrity.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for your answering. And
Okay.
so, anyone from participants, or shall I continue ahead? Yes, Bima ma'am. Should I
Yes,
go
Umer.
ahead?
Yes,
Okay,
Umer.
okay. Now I request Dr. Nilima Dixit madam to propose the vote of thanks.
Thanks, Umer. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to all. It gives me an immense pleasure to propose the vote of thanks for this national webinar to all dignitaries assembled virtually online. I, Dr. Nilima Dixit, on behalf of IQAC and Department of Chemistry of Maharashtra College, extend to you, Sir, Adv.Paarth Singh, a very hearty vote of thanks for taking time from your busy schedule to grace this webinar and sharing inspirational thoughts on human rights from Bundle of Rights with your vision on health and medical negligence, with very good examples and case laws with our participants. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to take this opportunity to express our hearty thanks to our respected principal, Dr. Sirajuddin Chowguli, for motivation, and IQAC coordinator, Dr. Rakshanda Hani, for support, and our HOD chemistry, Dr. Emma Sheikh, for encouraging us always. our coordinator of this webinar, Dr. Mayur Joshi, for coordinating every stakeholder from last 2 weeks. Then our technical team, which consists of Mr. Umair Ansari for anchoring, Mohammad Tanveer and Sahil Sheikh for every technical help, Aftab Bhagwani for prayer, and Ms. Huda Kazi for this question answer session moderation. Last but not the least, I thank you all the distinguished invitees present online for accepting our invitation, registering and present online in use number. Once again, I thank you all for your attention. Thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am, thank you so much. I request the participants to fill the feedback form and submit it. The link will be available in the chat box or in WhatsApp and in Telegram group. Okay. So yeah,
Okay.
we can. Thank
So,
you everyone.
sir,
Thank you all the participants.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Ansari, Umair, we will have a photograph. So please keep your video on. Everybody, I request you to keep your
Okay.
audio off and video on. Unmute yourself
Yes.
or mute.
Department of Chemistry. Yes, those who are from
Yes,
Department of
yes, sir.
Chemistry.
Julekha madam, Shagufta madam.
Yes, thank you so much, Riyaz sir. Sheikh sir is not seen.
Sheikh sir was there. Who is taking Tanveer Sahil photograph? Take now.
We can take a screenshot, ma'am.
Yes,
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 yes.
yes.
So,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Everybody is here.
Umair is taking, Sahil is taking photograph.
uh, if someone is login with laptop, so ma'am can take as I'm
Yeah,
logging.
I'm also taking. Riyaz sir, please take shot.
Thank you so much, everyone, delegates. Thank you so much, sir, Sheikh
Thank
sir, motivating our program, motivational speech. Thank
Thank you.
you
Thank you, everybody. I'll take your leave now.
for successful completion of program. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
thank
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. I'll
Yeah,
take your leave
goodbye.
now.
Take care.
yes, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Satish
Bye.
sir.
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, we can wind up now, right?
Ma'am, how to feel
Thank you, ma'am.